When you're learning a language, there are several factors that play into your overall proficiency. Your grammar, pronunciation, and even confidence play important roles. But when it comes to communication, there is one skill that stands head and shoulders above the rest, and that is vocabulary. Whether you're trying to get a message across, or just trying to understand what someone's saying, it doesn't matter so much if your grammar's a little bit off, or if you're saying stuff slightly wrong. But if you don't have the right words, it can be really challenging. You can grow your vocabulary just by memorizing the definitions or translations of words, but a lot of people have found that they learn words much more effectively if they learn them in context. So for example, rather than just memorizing the word play, you might learn the sentence, "The boy played with the ball," or even read a story about children playing with the ball. And this not only makes it much more memorable, but it also shows you how the word is used in the language. But exactly how much context do we need to learn words most effectively? Is just a sentence enough, or do we need a paragraph or even a whole story? Well, I found this study from Turkey testing exactly that. They took 60 students learning English as a foreign language and split them into 3 different classes. One class learnt words using no context at all, one class learnt words using just a one-sentence context, and then the final class learnt words using rich context, which means a paragraph or a story. The students were all adults at upper intermediate level, which makes the findings potentially pretty relevant to us language learners. I was actually pretty impressed by the quality of this study. All of the participants were randomly allocated to the groups, and they measured the students' vocabulary not only before and after they learnt the new words, but also some time later to test whether there's a difference in retention. The test they did at the beginning of the study showed that all 3 groups had about the same baseline, but after studying the new vocabulary, the students in the high context and low context groups fared significantly better. Now, just looking at the numbers, it's tempting to think that the low context group actually had an advantage over the high context group. However, if you look at the statistical analysis that they did, that's actually not statistically significant, which means there's a high probability that that was just a fluke, it occurred by chance. However, if you look at the difference between the no context group and the other groups that did include context, there is a very statistically significant result. It's hard to make super strong conclusions from just one study, but it shows that it's pretty likely that this intervention did have a real effect. And it's much the same story for the delayed test group as well, showing that there's a clear difference in retention between the no context group and the low and high context groups, but no significant difference between the 2 different context groups. What this study tells us is that while context is really important for learning new words, it doesn't seem to matter whether it's just one sentence of context or richer context such as a paragraph or story. So my view is that you should just do whichever one you enjoy and don't worry about it being inferior to other methods, because there's no real difference. If you like to improve your vocabulary using sentence flashcards, that's fine. If you prefer richer input such as reviewing stories, that's also great. I myself am a big fan of richer contexts, and that's influenced how I designed my app Squeno. Squeno makes it easy to learn new vocabulary using rich context. You can read a simplified version of any web page using Squeno's browsing features, or one of over 1,000 free stories, and with just one tap you can check the meaning of any new vocabulary. This uses context-aware AI translation, so you can be sure it's correct. But I'm thinking about adding a sentence flashcard feature as well. What if, when you check the meaning of new vocabulary, it automatically adds that sentence to a deck? Would that feature be helpful to you? Let me know in the comments. So we know that one sentence of context is pretty much just as good as richer context. But can we go smaller? What about just a few words of context? Well, another study, this time from Iran, tested vocabulary gain using contexts of just 1 word, 2 words, or 3 words. This time the study was on Iranian adults who were learning English at an advanced level. In the test immediately after studying the new vocabulary, the researchers found no significant difference between the groups. And the same goes for the delayed test as well. So going from a context of just 1 word to 2 words or 3 words has basically no effect, and you really see the benefit once it gets to 1 sentence or above. So the key takeaway here is when you're learning new vocabulary, just try and keep the context at least 1 sentence. Longer is fine, but less is not quite as good. How do you prefer to learn vocabulary? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the bell icon. It all helps the channel grow, so thank you for that. Links to Squeno and to the full articles are in the video description. And if you enjoyed this video, you're going to love this one.